what we have here is a little bit of rundown on engine design, and this engine design is slightly older than what I usually, a lot of what we're working on today, but an engine is an engine pretty much. Now they've changed some things, but we're going to start with this basic stuff here. This right here is where the air comes in. I should see this one here's even got a distributor on it. That's kind of an old one. And for the exhaust manifold, you notice on this particular engine, it's actually got headers on it instead of a cast iron manifold. Those headers basically have a tendency to extract the exhaust out of the cylinders instead of having it, bunch up in the runner that's right next to it and all that. The crankshaft is here, and it's kind of a cutaway, got a timing chain there. And here's your camshaft. The camshaft opens the valves let the air in. All of this stuff is an orchestrated breathing machine, is basically what it is. And so what you got here is there's your crankshaft. See, the camshaft is not pictured in this picture, but you basically have the crank turning that way. And if you're looking at the front of an engine in a front wheel drive car, it's going to be turning clockwise. If you're sitting in the car, it's turning counterclockwise. But if you're looking at the front of it, in other words, if you're sitting there looking at the front of the car, that's the direction it's turning. Just remember that. The only time that you're going to see an engine that doesn't turn clockwise is on these cars that have the engine put in them backwards. Like some of your Honda Civics and your Mitsubishis that have the timing belt over on the driver's side. Those actually turn backwards. They have to, because they're going to turn the same way the wheels roll. See what I mean? They got those engine setups running backwards. All right, so basically, if you remember the four cycles, you got a four-stroke engine, you got suck, squeeze, bang, blow. You're pulling the air in, you're going to squeeze it, you get a power event, and then it blows the exhaust back out and it starts all over. Okay, so this right here is the intake stroke right here. Pulling the air in, the valve's open, and now you're squeezing that. The piston's already gone all the way to the bottom. It's coming back up, it's squeezing the air. And basically when the intake opened, if it was a fuel-injected engine or a carbureted engine, the air and the fuel's pulled in there together, you squeeze that in. And one of the reasons that gasoline direct injection is so much better as far as the characteristics of it and the power and all, is with a gasoline direct injection engine, you can determine how the fuel is injected, when it's injected, and you got teeny tiny little droplets that are smaller than anything that's any other kind of injector is capable of putting in there. Because you got really high pressure, really tiny holes, and it's going right into the combustion chamber. So you can have a stratified charge or a homogeneous charge. You can either go pop, 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 or you can go psh, just let it burn the same way over time. There's your compression stroke. Squeeze in the air, and then you got a spark that happened, blows it back down, and that particular cycle, all the rest of the strokes, except for this one right here, that piston is actually being carried by the other pistons, or by inertia, or whatever. You got it? So the only time you're getting any power out of that is whenever some of your Ford, your Triton engines and stuff, they will shut off the spark in the fuel if you've got an engine that's running too hot and use every other cylinder to pump air to keep it cool. And then they swap cylinders and all that. It's pretty cool how they do that. All right, so this right here is your exhaust stroke. Now there is an overlap where both these valves are open just very briefly right at the very top. So this is not an exactly accurate thing. It's sort of just a general diagram of how this works. So you notice the piston's coming up right now. And if you don't know how many of you people don't know what top dead center or bottom dead center means? You notice how this is on the side? When that's in the middle, on the very top, and it's like straight up and down, that's top dead center. When it's on the bottom, that's bottom dead center. All right, now this one right here, you notice we're actually showing you valve action here with a camshaft. We got the timing chain. It's got to be these two have got to be working in conjunction with each other. One of the worksheets I've got down there for you guys is where you take an engine like the engine we got on standover, and you're gonna put the timing belt 2 teeth out of time. And then you're gonna look at the vacuum and you're gonna watch the running characteristics of it. And you can plug a scan tool into that engine, you can even see what the fuel trims are doing and all that. And so whenever you put it up a couple of degrees out of time, you check it up and you put it back in time, you see the difference. I'm trying to give you a little bit of frame of reference here. So now you got your cylinder head here, it's going to be bolted on there, and your push rod, which is this piece right here. There's a push rod on those. This right here, they call this overhead valve. Now the camshaft, if the camshaft is above the valves, they call it overhead cam. Well, the valves are always overhead unless you're working on a Briggs & Stratton or a flathead Ford, right? Which is odd. But they call it overhead valve if it's one that's like this, where the camshaft is in a block. There's a lifter here, push rod, operating the rocker arm, opening and closing the valves. You're only seeing one of the valves here. A cross flow head is one where the intake comes in one side and the exhaust goes out the other. You familiar with that? I mean, that's like most engines are like that nowadays. On some of the old heads, like the old 306 and the old hot water 6-engine Chevrolet, they would actually have the exhaust come in one in the head and turn around and go right back out. There's a runner next to it. You know, like the exhaust and the intake are on the same side. Jeep Cherokee is like that. That's right. All right. Now on the overhead cam, a lot of times you got a cam fall over there, and basically it's going to operate the valve and the camshafts up here. Now you still have a timing belt or a chain on this, so you didn't get away from that, and the camshaft is up here. Now on the ones that are like this, there's going to be a pressurized oil feed through the cylinder head that's going to feed that camshaft. So that's a potential pressure leak. You know, all pressure leaks are either a splash leak or a drip leak or something like that. But a pressure leak is possible underneath the head gasket on the ones that have overhead cam, because it has to have a pressurized oil feed to the bearings around that camshaft. And so this, you notice you don't really have what you call a lifter on this one. Now some engines, in spite of the fact they're overhead cam, will have lifters. They'll have a lifter on one side. See, they may have a lifter over here and operating the valve like that. It's a peculiar, I got to show you that, like the 2.7 Chryslers are like that. Some of the other ones I can show you. But anyway, they got a funky little lifter that you can just pull out over your fingers. And a lot of them, they got a cam follower with a wheel on it. Okay? The ones that the thing about camshafts in gears like this, have you ever turned a camshaft with a wrench? With all the valve springs and everything? It goes whoop, 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 doesn't it? You know? Okay, it's going to do the same thing in the engine. And if you got any lash between those gears, if it's a directly gear driven, and notice this, the camshaft and the crankshaft turn opposite directions on this one, because you just got them two gears. So this one's turning that way, that one's going to be turning the other way. It has to, no way around it. Okay, so if you don't have any, if you got a lash, it's going to make a hammering noise, really noisy and ugly. Nobody likes that. And so some of the GM engines, they put a phenolic gear in there that was some sort of composite material. But the problem with that phenolic gear is that it would bust it. I mean, it would bust that gear and then you have a no starter. On some of the Fords they did that too. And Volkswagen, the way that they did it, they had 11 different camshaft grinds. They had a plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 0. And with the angled helical gear cuts were different, and you were supposed to put it in there where there was absolutely no lash whatsoever between the cam and the crank. It would run, but it would be noisy if you had lash between those gears. Just keep that in mind. The Toyota people got smart and they put scissor gears in there with spring loaded. I'll show you that later. But if you happen to put a Toyota back together without loading you're supposed to put a bolt in there to keep the scissor gear loaded. Goes through the gear and it'll spring between two gear halves. And if you put it together with those gears unloaded, it makes a terrible noise from under the valve cover to scare the daylights out of you. It ain't hurting nothing, just noisy. You know, customers don't like that either. It's terrible. All right, so basically what we got on this one here, we're looking at the crankshaft pulls the piston down. It's a little 3D version of that. There's your little camshaft. See, we didn't draw teeth here. We're just showing you it's just turning that way, that's turning that way. And these little rocker arms are opening the valve. This is not hard to figure out. Now these rocker arms will either be hollow and oil will go through them to all those rockers, or they'll be solid and the rockers will be all some other kind of way. Because you got a little bit of oil up there too, but a lot of the times on those it'll be, there won't be a whole lot to it except just splash and everything. All right, so this is another little, running down through that. Both valves are closed. Crank pushes piston up. See, basically the only time the piston is doing any real good as far as providing power to the engine is whenever it's being driven down by the expanding fuel. All right, so piston travels upward, crank moves a half revolution. So basically, if you turn this crank 720 degrees, you've done a full cycle. Because you got to turn the crank 720 degrees to make the piston go up and down 4 times. See, we're going to start at the top of the intake stroke. We're going intake, compression, power, exhaust. You got it? Intake, compression, power, exhaust. Intake, compression, power, exhaust. They all do that. And most engines, I'll just bet all of them, except for 5 cylinders and 3 cylinders, have got companion cylinders. If you take the cylinder head off a 4-cylinder engine, you'll notice that the front cylinder and the back cylinder are coming up and down together. when one's on exhaust, the other's on intake. When I did engine principles class years ago, when I first started teaching, I had a 4-cylinder engine out there, and I would say, you know, for the part of the final exam, I'd say, okay, I want you to put the put the number 4-cylinder on top dead center exhaust. And I'd have the valve cover off. They'd work. And I'd say, okay, now put the number 1 cylinder on top dead center compression. Then they'd work. And I'd say, okay, you made a C. And they say, why do you make a C? I said, because all you had to do to put the number 1 cylinder on top dead compression and number 4 on top dead exhaust on this 4-cylinder is line up the timing marks. And you'd be done. You see what I'm saying? They were actually getting all stressed out about it. But if you think about it, when you line top dead center up, compression on 1, 4's at exhaust, and vice versa. The companion cylinders. Those are also the ones that are fired by these coil packs. Got it? The companions are always going to be fired by the same coil. One spark jumping in, the other spark jumping out. All right. So let's go here. A lean burn combustion uses extra air. Fast burn combustion burns at a faster rate. So lean burn was something that you know, it's kind of cleaner. And Chrysler went with this lean burn system that they used back in the 70s that we tinkered with. Had a little computer hanging on the side of the breather and it said Chrysler electronic lean burn system and all that sort of stuff. A lean exhaust runs hot, and a rich exhaust burns cool. So the combustion chamber is cooler with a rich exhaust than it is with a lean exhaust, but you're also going to heat up your catalytic converter if you're running rich. See what I'm saying? So catalytic converters got to deal with that too. And so you know if it burns, and you got flame propagation, you're basically wanting the flame to go all the way to every part of the cylinder and consume all the fuel instead of leaving some hanging around on the cylinder walls and the head and all that stuff. That's one of the reasons premium fuel will cause an engine to get carboned up on the inside, because it burns so slow that not all of it burns. And there's technical service bulletins from Ford and Chrysler and some others that will tell you not to use 92 octane fuel or 93 octane fuel in an 87 octane car. If it's supposed to have 87 octane, the fuel burns slower. That's the difference between the premium and the regular. And did you know how many tanks does a gas station have under the ground out there nowadays? You know, I mean, like if all they've got is regular, premium, and mid-grade, what do they got under there? What do they got under the ground? How many tanks?
3.
2. The mid-grade pump mixes the 2 gases. That's a trick, isn't it? Okay. See, you got some unburned fuel here. Cool surface area. You know, notice they're putting the piston rings closer to the top of the piston. Now Nick's over here turning into a skeleton. He's about to go to sleep. See that? They put it on the top of the cylinder and they make the rings skinnier now. The skinnier rings gives it less drag on the cylinder walls. But if you wash the cylinder walls down on one with skinny rings, it goes, it sounds like it ain't got no compression. You just wear it jump time. You know, like if cranking it up and pulling it and parking it without letting it warm up. Used car lots do that a lot. Okay, but on the ones that the older engine, like your old 302 or your 350, if it's been sitting around, all the oil gone from cylinder walls. You ever heard one of them old engines go when you're trying to start it?
Yeah.
It turns real slow. You squirt a bunch of automatic transmission fluid down in there, get that thing slicked up, it'll spin faster. That's what it takes to take care of that problem. And after you get it started, it starts moving forward. That's okay. But there's a lot of unburned fuel over here far away from the spark plug. That's what they're concerned about. On emissions and performance, they're concerned about that. You got a cool surface area right here because the cylinder head's constantly getting cooled, and the surface quenching basically puts out the fire because it's too cold over there, and it starts to build a layer of carbon because that fuel's left in there. Got it? All right, so here your volume, 694 cc's at bottom dead center, and 73 cc's at top dead center. That's 9.5 to 1 compression ratio. Understand compression ratio. I'm not going to make you do a bunch of math to figure out, you know, the displacement and all that on these engines. There's formulas for that you can look up. But anyway, this is the difference. If you take this and that, and you're basically divide that over this, you're going to basically get your compression ratio. How much is in there? And diesel engines will have 17, 18 to 1. You know, it's the gas burner here. And also a diesel engine, the piston comes to within usually 40 thousandths of an inch of the cylinder head before it stops and goes back down. Of course, they'll have a dish in the top of the piston for that. But anyway, okay, high compression is good for performance and fuel economy, bad for NOx emissions and engine knock. NOx is when the oxygen and the nitrogen and the air lock together at over 2,500 degrees in the combustion chamber. Combustion chamber gets really hot during that burn, and it'll lock that stuff together and make knock. Catalytic converter is supposed to take care of that. EGR helps because it cools the combustion chamber a little bit. more about that later. My dad had a Volkswagen shop that he worked on a lot of, and he ground 125,000 off the cylinder heads when he had a machine to do that. And we built this old engine, this old possum hunting car I had, and that thing ran like a Porsche. But the compression was higher because we, shaved off the heads an eighth of an inch. All right, this bore and the stroke. Look at this. Basically, if you've got one that's the bore is bigger, in other words, you're measuring how far it goes up and down, and you're measuring how big it is this way. Okay, if it's littler this way, if it's smaller this way than it is this way, you got that? What's that? That's over square. No, that's under square, sorry. Over square is whenever this is bigger than this. Now think about this, if you got a crank, I got a little crank, and it's a little small, short crank, I can turn it really, really fast. Right? Do I have a lot of power? I got a longer crank, I got more power, but I can't turn it as fast. You get where I'm going with that? Same deal. Now I'll tell you something else too, a gas burner, when it's burning, the gas is just slapping, the explosion is usually burned out by 24 degrees after top dead center, and the gasoline explosion is just slapping the top of the piston. On a diesel, it burns all the way down, and it's pumping that crank. That's why you got this legendary torque on these diesels. You're pretty good on that. Okay, so that's basically how all this works. You got this is a crank, and basically it takes the up and down motion of the piston, and it turns it in, this is reciprocating motion they call it, and turns it into spinning motion because everything is round all the way back. Transmission gears, drive shaft, wheels, everything's round. So it's got to be turning to go, right? Okay, got coolant passages in here. There's exhaust port right there, cylinder head and casting. There's a little valve lifter right there. Valve lifters typically will keep the valves adjusted if they're hydraulic lifters. They're set up that way. There is a sheet where you're supposed to adjust the valves on the 350 over there. And that gives you, basically tells what order to adjust them in. I mean, most of the 350s are gone. You also got to put a distributor in it. You got to pull a distributor out of the 350, put it back in there. Get it wired up and get it started and all that, the guys that are in engine performance. And engine repair. I won't make all of you guys do that. Why not? Okay, right here, camshafts. You got the valve spring right here. Those are supposed to be straight and they're supposed to be the same height and all that. Sometimes they break. Little valve spring retainer, you'll see some of those unless you pull a valve out of cylinder head. Show you how to, that little tool with the, have you ever seen a little stick with the suction cups on each end? I got it in my office, and that's for lapping valves. That's what it's for. Cylinder head components. This is overhead cam design. So you got a camshafts up here. And then there's your, basically there's your cylinder head gasket right there. Okay, now this one right here, we're just going to whip through these combustion chambers. It's a cross section of the combustion chamber. Spark plug goes in here. There you got that valve right there, air intake, air and valve port. And the combustion chambers are various different shapes for various different reasons. They're always trying to do something different. This is a cross flow cylinder head. Intake comes in, you get the burn, it exhaust goes out. Seems like that's the best way to go, doesn't it? All right, I mean that is better than the other way. All right, now this is a wedge shaped combustion chamber for a turbulent squish. You're basically wanting this air to be swirling around in there so that you'll get more complete combustion, more flame propagation, better emissions. That's what that's about. This is the effective engine design on emissions and performance. This is, I put that green like antifreeze on that, and then right in here's your combustion chamber. See, it's a hemispherical combustion chamber. You remember we're talking about Hemi head, like on your Dodges? Hemi head, that's a Hemi head. Spark plugs right in the middle, valves on each side, nice even breathing, and you got a couple little, basically there's a ridge the way the piston is designed. If you look at the top of it, you can see that's the cross section of it. All right, there's your intake valve, there's your exhaust valve. I colored all that for you too. That's a pent roof, which is similar to a Hemi, but it's more angular. All right, you got these squish areas, dual squish. This is kind of like the diesel, the Power Stroke diesels and stuff. They have very little clearance right here, which your combustion chamber, a lot of times this will even be flat, which your combustion chamber will be in the piston itself. A lot of times they'll have a little mountain in the middle of it. All right. Rich mix pre-chamber, you got a lean mixture. See, basically you got a stratified charge combustion chamber on the ones that are set up like that. See, some of the old Mitsubishis have that. And these valves right here will get coked up and start giving trouble. We fault those things. And then there's your second, you got a secondary intake valve. Here's a Honda stratified charge. It's a peculiar design, you know. They're basically not even showing you the exhaust valve right here. Okay. Cut off my little, there we go. Okay, high swirl. Your old Ford Tempos and Topazes had a high swirl combustion chamber in them. I love those engines because they had a cast iron cylinder head, camshaft within the block. I worked on one time that had been overheated so many times that the thermostat had turned blue. And it quit running beside the road, and she'd wait till it cooled off and drive it some more. But somebody had put clear water in it, and it turned into mushy rust, and it couldn't circulate. And I put a radiator in it, flushed it out, put a thermostat in it. She drove away. She didn't blow a gasket. She didn't burn no oil or anything. Those things are really tough. I think you shoot the thing with a Uzi and then pick up the driveway with it. All right, let me get back on my little. All right, there's your 4-valve combustion chamber. You're going to have better breathing and higher compression on 4-valve combustion chambers than you are on 2-valve combustion chambers. And remember, the intake valve is always the bigger one. Can you remember that? Everybody say that with me. The intake valve is always the bigger one. So if you don't, I mean, that's going to help you with some of your electric stuff because there's some questions on that.
I just seen that.
You seen that,
didn't you?
had
a video on it.
Yep, sure did. All right. There's your intake, there's your exhaust. You got a center mounted spark plug that's going to give it a lot better burn because it's basically more centrally located in the chamber. A lot of the times they'll have it where the spark is actually farther out in the chamber too, so that it'll have better flame propagation. It's all about that. Electrodes extended farther reach in the combustion chamber. Now here's something else. If you see a lot of this ceramic that's exposed out there, you got a hotter spark plug than if it's farther down. And hotter, I mean it runs hotter. It'll be a hotter running spark plug. And you can put spark plugs in there that are so hot they make the engine run hot. Believe it or not. I didn't know that until I put some really hot spark plugs in a Lodestar 1800 International with a gas burner I was working on. And it ran hot because I put really, really hot spark plugs in it. And I had no clue it would do that. Furthermore, when you tighten the spark plug down, that tapered seat has got to go against the head because if it doesn't, it won't conduct heat out of the plug correctly and the plug will burn out. So be really careful with it. I got one over where somebody didn't tighten down. It was in an aluminum head because and whenever you're putting the spark plugs back in these heads, it's got it down in a well. Don't just throw the plug down in there and feel like it'd be aight. You know, because you mess up the first thread, now you can't get the plug in there, and now you got a big mess. And you start it with a piece of hose or something, or have a socket that'll hold it. Don't just throw the plug down in the hole. You know, and I mean, I've actually seen people do that in garages. You know, and this right here, they basically look how they did this. They got these valves, these cylinder heads made so you got a 25-degree cant. It helps form knock-resistant combustion chamber. Knock-resistant means detonation, spark knock. Whenever the flame lights off before it's supposed to because of engine heat. I always like to talk about that movie. There was a movie that Steve Guttenberg was on called Don't Tell Her It's Me. And big, long story, but this girl had drove this big old Buick. And she pulled up in front of this house and got out and went up the stairs looking for somebody. And the whole time she was in that house, that Buick was sitting there dieseling. Still running, blowing smoke. She'd switched it off, but the heat in the combustion chamber kept it running. In spite of the fact there was no spark, it was still able to pull fuel in through the carburetor because the engine was still breathing. You get me? All right, so that's just one of those things. I actually had a 91 Ford Explorer that was dieseling one time. And it was fuel injection. I said, how in the world can this happen? Well, the power relay was stuck. And it was keeping the engine controller awake. The injectors were still awake. The ignition system shut down, but the PCM and the injectors, the crank sensor and all that was still putting fuel in there and it was still trying to run. Sounded like a physical impossibility, like I started thinking about it and checked it out. Okay, valve recessing is whenever they wear out and they beat up into the head. You know, they used to put lead in the gasoline so that it would coat the valves and everything, make everything run smoother. All right, here you got swirl intake ports. You know, some of the intake chambers will swirl the gases going in there and make it better and all that. All right, come on. Come on. What's going on here? There we go. All right, you got a wedge shaped piston dish, reduced surface area. This is an old one like we got in that Escort over there. And you got smaller valves compared to carbureted engines. You got a D-shaped chamber, so on and so forth. And basically, it's trying to get more power, and that's what, like I say, gasoline direct injection does that. You got a smaller engine, you got more power, so on and so forth. Hemispherical combustion chamber, and you got this squish area here. There's going to be a little bit of underburn gas right above those rings in there too, and there's some blowback. There's your piston and connecting rod. You've seen that before. You've got bearings, you got a connecting rod, you got a wrist pin, you got rings, and see the ignition. See how the direction of the force is down on that. And like some of that's going to go past those rings and get in. That's your blow by. Your PCV system is supposed to take care of that. Now you're making a gallon of water for every gallon of fuel you burn. You remember that? Can you remember that? You're making a gallon of water for every gallon of fuel you burn. That's why you crank one up in the winter, you see steam coming out of the pipe. Right? All right. Dish-shaped piston top. You've seen those before. Flat top piston. Dish top piston. You got added volume there. They did this. They went from this to this whenever they went to unleaded gasoline. And then there you got your wedged dish, and then your little squish area there, and you know your cylinder block. And I'm just trying to whip through this really quick. And there's your reduced volume with domed piston. See, you put anything that takes up that combustion chamber. You start to kick up carbon on the top of the piston and take up room in the combustion chamber, you're liable to have some pinging. Sometimes that happens from people using premium fuel. You know, sometimes it happens from driving short distances. There's all kinds of things that can happen. You get one carboned up like that, it can actually have detonation and ping and spark knock when nothing else is wrong with it. And what we would do is, you know, pour a bunch of type F transmission fluid in there because it didn't have silicone, wouldn't hurt the oxygen sensor. Get out there and do like Elvis and leave the building, you know, so you're out in the parking lot when you do it. Smoke comes out of it, it softens the carbon, and you follow up with cold water, rivet it up, pouring it in the top, and that'll, you know, knock that carbon right off there. You ever see somebody pull a head off where one has had a blown head gasket, there's been a lot of water going into the cylinder? That cylinder, the piston looks shiny and brand new where all that water's been going in there. All right, so let's see. Let me see if I can get past that. Squish area is where quench occurs. Quench is where the fire went out and it left some gas and started building carbon. Wedge shape, piston dome, turbulent squish area. You know, this is not really a big deal. And this is, we're just covering a lot of combustion chamber stuff. You see, there's a whole lot more to most of these engines than what you think there are. And then you got different kind of rings. Barrel face, keystone, half keystone, headland, scraper. You know there's that many kind of piston rings? It just keeps on going, you know. And you got cam lobes. You can actually measure from here to here, and then measure from there to there, and you can determine how much your lift is. I'm going to have some of you guys put a dial indicator on top of a push rod and measure the valve lift. If you suspect a cam lobe is worn off, that's how you'll find it. Because in your spec book, you're going to find what the spec is for the valve lift. Only, and you know, 4.8s, 5.3s are notorious for that kind of thing. They're not the only ones that do it though. See that? There's you got your duration, and you got lift. That's two missions. You know, duration is a lot. If it stays open longer, you got long duration. If it stays, see, this isn't really drawn on that well because it's hard to tell. Lift is how much it opens it up. Duration is how long it keeps it open. But when you add a cam on there, you're changing your lift and duration. But if you get it out of tune a little bit, it's going to, you know, these hot rod, super hot rod engines sitting here going, how they sit here rumbling out with all that stuff. You've heard that in your race car stuff. Well, they do that because the cam, it basically can't breathe good. You got low engine vacuum idling and all that kind of thing. And I mean, it does really good out whenever it's full-throated down the drag strip thing. A lot of these lifters have got little bearing rollers on them. The ones that are flat, when you pull those out, you're supposed to look at the bottom of them and see if they're dished or worn out. If they are, you're probably going to need to put a camshaft in it too. Not all that complicated. There's your overhead camshaft. That'll have a little lifter on the side over there. See with this here. That lifter right there helps keep the lash out and all that. That's as far as I'm going to go on this presentation today because we're just about out of time. So tell me what you learned that you didn't already know.
How many rings there were?
Yep. What about you?
Not something.
Yeah, what he said. Yeah, I get that. What?
Same thing.
Same thing? Same thing. Okay. That's the same thing. I'm going to start grading people on the answers they give me on this. What about you?
They're not different piston.
Yeah.
Piston heads.
Yeah.
Diesel.
Dieseling, yeah. Yep. Dr. Lane?
That there is only two gas things in the bottom of it at a gas station.
Oh, there's only two tanks, yeah. Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it?